Why do I think the character of Thor resonates with audiences around the world? I think because he has evolved over the years, much like all of us. There's a growth within each film and a new experience, and he has learnt things about himself and changed and matured. And that's the journey we're all on, isn't it? It's a journey of self-discovery. Yeah, the reflective nature of Thor. I think, look, all of us, self-reflection. We look in the mirror and we think, who are we? Who should we be? Who do we want to be? There's a constant question we all have faced, as is Thor. And I think what he's learned over the years is to stay true to who he is. And although he wants quieter moments and wishes for peace and serenity, the universe calls upon him for his support, and he is in servitude of others. And when the call is made, he answers and off he goes. And Natalie Portman is back, and this time as the mighty Thor, which, imagine seeing your ex-girlfriend where there was the untold story, unfinished business. There was love there that was never truly experienced. All of that comes flooding into Thor's being and experience in that moment. And I think he's intimidated. I think he's in wonder and fascination, but most of all, he's impressed and he's in love when he sees her. Natalie Portman did the most amazing job playing the mighty Thor, and I can't wait for people to see it. The villain in this film, played by Christian Bale, he plays Gorr the God Butcher, and it has rated as the highest tested villain in the MCU, and man, he was impressive. The first time he walked on set, I was blown away, I was intimidated, but what was most impressive is underneath the villainous nature of what he portrayed on screen, there was a vulnerability too. There was an accessibility there through the nuanced empathy, that he had, and also was asked of an audience. You don't agree with what he's doing, but you kind of understand his anger and frustration and his motivation. Russell Crowe as Zeus. Hilarious. What I really appreciated was the fact that he came in and was self-deprecating and kind of made a fool of himself in the most wonderful way. He had such a beautiful sense of humor with it. The self-deprecating nature that he had was infectious amongst all of us. And to, I think the trapping would have been to come in and play it Gladiator-esque that we've seen before and loved, but he really turned that on its head and did something very unique and fresh. Yeah, the volume's really interesting. It's a 360 LCD screen basically, and it's far more immersive than working traditional blue screen, green screen. You have the environment projected on those screens, and it is reflected back upon you. Instead of having to imagine what you're looking at in the environment, it's right there on the screen. So it is more immersive, and it makes for I think a more fun and vivid experience. Yeah, Taika Waititi, since Ragnarok, really changed the game, and both he and I discussed this at length about doing something very different and something unique, and he continues to push the envelope and raise the bar and keep audiences guessing, keep them on their toes. He's collaborative and fun and chaotic and exciting, and that's what this film is. And it embodies the most adventurous spirit that is needed to be a Marvel Cinematic Universe film and picture.
I think Thor resonates because Chris Hemsworth is just someone that you're interested in watching and seeing grow over the years. I mean, he's just so charismatic and such a good actor and such a good sense of humor too. Like, you're just completely entertained all the time. I think that Taika was able to create this very, very particular genre that was able to mix things that you never could imagine would mix, like this really wacky out there humor with really heartfelt emotional depth to, romance to action to even horror elements. And he just has a kind of imagination and sensibility that makes all of that work together, and it's amazing. Well, it's an amazing opportunity that I was given to have Jane become the mighty Thor and have this kind of combination between being human and being a superhero, and how each influences the other. Of course, I read the comic books of the mighty Thor and talked to Taika a lot about, how we might bring her to screen. And then it was really a process too of just being open to anything on set, because Taika's so spontaneous and really likes to invent in the moment. And most of the time the script is just thrown away and you're just inventing as you go. And so a lot of it has to do with kind of just coming to work with a very open mentality and like not trying to control what you're doing and just be free to whatever happens. I think that, Jane has the perspective of, her own life challenges. And I think that, it gives her definitely a different way of interacting with Thor. And also, I think, reuniting after knowing someone 10 years ago and having had this history, we revisit those relationships in different ways when we have the perspective of time too. Chris is just so incredible because he's the hardest working person I've met, and he's so talented and he's so kind. He's just like always good to everyone, always so professional, so funny, and just like really it's remarkable when you see someone who is just a better version of who he already started as a great person and just has only become more so over the years, despite, the trappings of all the success he's had. It's only, only deepened his work and his personality. Taika is so fun. He makes every moment like he's just committed to always being spontaneous, always creating a fun, creative environment. And it's just a completely different experience to be on his set. And he's also very kind. Like his humor is really extraordinary because it's never at anyone's expense, ever. And it's just creates a very safe environment to try anything, because like he's always like embracing. Well, Tessa's Valkyrie is probably my favorite of all the superheroes, and I wish I'm looking forward to her whole film. And it was extraordinary to get to work together because we had worked together on Annihilation right before she did Thor Ragnarok, and we stayed friends and like have done so much together personally, and then to come to set together and have a friend there already and have that rapport and have that familiarity was extraordinary. And then of course to work alongside her in her brilliance and her humor and her creativity was so fun. I mean, our scenes together are like my favorites in the film, and I feel like my love for her is eternal.
Marvel has quite a few characters that resonate very well, don't they? But I've only read about him, obviously, the whole Norse mythology, but I've only seen him with Chris playing him in Ragnarok and in this one, in Love and Thunder. I haven't seen the others. And so you got an actor who's born to play Thor. Who else could do that? He's a beast of a man, but one of the kindest men you'll ever meet, and just kills it. He is magnificent as this character. And I think my understanding is, Ragnarok and this one really brought a good sense of humor to the world, which Taika does beautifully with Chris. They're a great duo, and it's comedy, but it's really moving as well. That's the thing with Love and Thunder that I found when I watched it. I was like, oi, this is far more emotional than I'd ever imagined it could be. And Taika's great at that, the comedy and the tragedy together. I don't know what the key to playing him is, but he's Gorr the God Butcher. So it kind of tells you what he's up to. And he's not a very nice fella. That it's easy. It's the easiest job. It's easy playing a villain because everyone's fascinated with the villain. Playing the hero, that's the toughest job. Well, the process is that you need brilliant special effects makeup artists. Because I would say we chose to go that direction, but I actually arrived thinking that we were doing CGI and I would just have to stick on a few dots, and suddenly I was going, wait, why am I being called 4 hours before everyone else? What's up with that? And then I learned, I must have missed the conversation where it was decided it was prosthetics instead. But what it takes is crazy talented special effects people who are wonderful collaborators, who are equally responsible as me in creating this character. Adam Johansson and Carla and Emily, who we started at 4 hours each morning and then got it down to about 3.5, and then about an hour and a half in the evening, getting it all off as well, and created the character. Taika is a unique individual, which you need in any director. You're looking for a new and interesting point of view, and he certainly has that. He's a funny bastard, and he did a lot funnier stuff than was allowed to be in the film, in my opinion. But we must remember we're making a family-oriented film. We did a lot scarier stuff and weirder, creepier stuff as well. But that's the nature of film. A lot of that ends up on the cutting room floor. But he's got a wonderful, he's a real artist, and he's able to have this great sense of humor, but also wonderful sincerity as well. And it's actually a really beautiful film, Love and Thunder, because it's funny as hell, and it's very moving as well. Dynamite, I mean, what a cast, such talent with Chris, who's just a wonderful bloke, and just, just sort of humiliating to be around him constantly. And was so welcoming and inviting, and just a good guy, really wonderful actor. And Natalie Portman and Tessa Thompson, who are just fantastic as well. Taika really created just a really good cast, and everybody else who I'm not mentioning as well. I got to work with Peter Dinklage. That's not in the final film, but I got to work with him. He's fantastic. I got to work with Jeff Goldblum. He's not in the final film either. As you see, lots of stuff ends up on the cutting room floor, even though it is beautiful, brilliant stuff. Yes, because it's Taika at the helm, and there's very few people who know how to balance and juggle all of that, and with such a massive palette and massive bloody budget, which is a task in itself, knowing how to do that. So he's done an incredible job.
I think Thor, I guess I only learned this recently, that Thor has the most standalone movies of anyone in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which means he really connects with audiences. And I think he connects with audiences because he's the kind of guy you want to be, but he's also a kind of guy that feels relatable in some weird way. I mean, when we first met him early on, he was sort of this fish out of water, which I think we all can feel as humans. And then he's just kind of like a goofy, lovable guy that I feel like you kind of want to sit down and hang out with. He's fallible, he's not perfect, but he has a big heart, and he's always trying. And I think that's something that we all can sort of know and understand and love. Why? I don't know. That's cool. If fans love Valkyrie a lot, that is cool. and I don't know why, but I love it, and thank you for loving her. I think she's fantastic, and I think she's again sort of like Thor. I think she's imperfect, but I think she has a really, really good heart, and she's a lovable person. And I think when you first meet her, especially, you really want her to love herself, and I think that's sometimes something that you can feel endeared to in a person, kind of when they don't actually know how great they are. And when they begin to understand that and love that, they become even better people. And I think that's what you want for Valkyrie. And for me, I just can't believe I feel so incredibly lucky to get to make these movies. Like every day when I show up to make these movies, I kind of really and truly feel like I'm pinching myself, and so I think that makes me just want to be better and serve the character more, and not let the fans down, and not let my co-stars down, and so it's just been a pleasure to get to do that. Yeah, so we find Valkyrie at the beginning of this film as King of New Asgard, and she's so proud to be that because she loves her people so intensely. But, she has spent her whole life, which represents thousands and thousands of years, as a career soldier and being a part of, a group and a sistren of fighters. And I think she's really missing that. She's missing a sense of adventure. She's missing that camaraderie. And what is exciting is she kind of finds that again in the adventure of Thor, Love and Thunder, and the bad guy that they have to beat in Gore the God Butcher, but she also finds sisterhood in Mighty Thor, and that's really satisfying. And I think you get to see her really figure out the kind of king that she wants to be, and I really think that she's a great king. So I trained a lot to prepare for this film, particularly because I was coming out of the height of the pandemic, and I think like many people across the world, we were like eating our feelings and spending a lot of time on the couch and at home. So I had a lot of training to do to get ready, but I had help. I had an incredible trainer named Reginald Brantley, or Reggie the Machine, who's trained a lot of bodybuilders, and so on a really just strict regimen of just working really hard with a lot of cardio and weight training and a lot of diet, which is my least favorite thing because I like to just eat anything I ever want to eat. But I had to not do that for a while. But it's really cool to get really strong, and I think one of the pleasures of doing these films is you get to be tasked to try to get in really good shape, and apart from the fact that it looks like cool to have muscles, like Chris Hemsworth, you also can feel, really strong, and you wake up in less pain and you have more energy, and that was certainly nice, especially after not feeling great for about 2 years on my couch. Working with Chris Hemsworth is like a warm fire, is like an afternoon picnic. It's like a walk in the park. It's like a cup of tea. It's like, no, I don't know. I love Chris. I really like Chris. I love working with Chris. Chris and I like to make fun of each other. We like to make each other laugh. Our families are bonded now. Our parents like each other. I think we'll just merge the Thompsons and the Hemsworth, the Hems-Tomps, the Thompsworth, I think is what we're aiming for. I love his wife. I love his children. He has donkeys. I like them too. And I just want to hang on his cape, both literally and figuratively, because look, he's so cool. Working with director Taika Waititi is like a tightrope. It's like Russian roulette. It's like a word game. It's like Scrabble. It's like organized chaos. It is like theater. And it is like an amusement park. It's very fun, and there's lots of music, and he's really inventive and lovely and a maniac. And I feel really grateful that we get to make these films with him, because I think they're really weird, singular films, and I'm not sure that anyone else would make a film, like this one that we made. So I feel really grateful. Well, working with Natalie is such a joy. We had made a film together many years ago. It was a very different film, but also a film that, had a lot of women and powerful women working on an assignment together. And she and I, during that time, were talking about how rare it is that we all get to work together, that typically there might be 1 or 2 women on a movie, if you're even lucky to have 2. And, you know, we're friends outside of making movies together. And so I think getting to do this. And funnily, when we made that movie together many years ago, I was about to come and do Thor Ragnarok, and so I was training for that, and I was asking her, well, what's it like working on Marvel movies? Like, do you have any tips? And she was like, yeah, but I don't know, I was never a superhero. And so then for her to come in and now be a superhero, and she's like, got any tips? And I'm like, this is so funny. It's like it felt like we really came full circle, and also to get to like be in the gym together and getting strong together and getting to make this film is really such a dream come true. And it was so fun to get to watch her inhabit the spirit of Mighty Thor.
Well, I think Thor resonates more now with the Ragnarok movie that we did, and also now with Love and Thunder, because we're giving him more human problems, more relatable problems. You know, let's face it, you can't really relate to a space Viking who's thousands of years old and is basically a zillionaire who lives in space. So you've got to give these characters things that we've all experienced, and in this film, I think we can relate to him more than ever, where he's lost, he's trying to find purpose, and he, luckily, by the end of the film, he finds that purpose. My approach to Thor was to create a film that's fun and energetic and adventurous, but also emotional. And I really wanted to concentrate on this idea of love and what love means to Thor, and you know, and whether or not that's the thing he's searching for, is this idea of loving someone and being loved. So we find Thor in a very reflective, meditative position at the beginning of the film. He's trying to find himself. He's looking internally. He's doing a lot of searching, like a lot of us do when we feel lost. We suddenly turn to crystals and meditation to try and figure our stuff out. And it's the same with Thor in this. We wanted to create this idea that he's going through a midlife crisis, and he's after years of saving planets and saving other people, he hasn't really left anything for himself, and it's about him finding the way to find purpose. So Natalie Portman is now back in the MCU. She's back in the Thor franchise, and in a bigger, better, bolder way, and it's extremely exciting because she's now the mighty Thor. She's no longer Thor's girlfriend, the scientist in Albuquerque. She's now the mighty Thor who has the hammer, and she's got the cape and the armor, and she can fly, and she's wielding Mjolnir, and she can harness lightning. I mean, she's an incredible character, super strong, and it's great to see Natalie. It's great to see a female superhero all the time. It's great, but to see one so powerful and really dominating a lot of the storyline, and really being an equal presence with Thor is a great thing to see. When Thor and Jane meet after years of being apart and years of not talking, she's on the battlefield and she's dressed as the mighty Thor, and she's got her powers and she's doing amazing things with the hammer. She can wield the hammer in a way that Thor never could. And Thor's reaction, apart from the surprise and the shock at seeing someone holding his hammer, is really more focused on that's his ex-girlfriend and he hasn't seen her for a long time, and maybe this is the thing he's been looking for to fill that hole in his life, the thing that might give him purpose. The villain in this film is played by Christian Bale, and the villain's name is Gore the God Butcher. And he comes from a run of comics from Marvel, it's called The God Butcher. The character's called The God Butcher. And he's probably one of the more sympathetic villains that they've had in the MCU. And he's very formidable, and essentially, he's a very scary, maybe the scariest villain they've had. But he's sympathetic because he's dealing with issues that, without giving it away, you understand where his anger and his drive comes from. Tessa Thompson is back as Valkyrie, and she's now King Valkyrie. She's ruling over New Asgard in Norway, and they're making their best attempts to integrate into Earth society, and they've made a little tourism town out of that little part of Norway, and they've got a thriving industry. And Valkyrie is overseeing all of this. She's got new responsibilities. However, she's also a career soldier. She's a professional fighter, and that's really the life that she's used to. And so she's now in a bureaucratic position where she's just doing a lot of admin and a lot of meeting a lot of delegates from other countries and stuff, and business meetings, and for her, it's really cool to see the character like that. He's dealing with this stuff and being very responsible for the first time in a long time, but also still, her heart is in the battle and going on adventures. And then she does get to go on the adventure. Korg is a fantastic character in the film. He's made of rocks, and he's played by one of the greatest actors I've ever worked with, Taika Waititi. And what can I say about Taika as an actor? He's often late, doesn't learn his lines, so that's very frustrating. But he means well, and that's why I give him lots of takes to get it right. Russell Crowe, one of the finest actors ever to grace the silver screen, is someone that I've admired for many years. I think I've seen Master and Commander about 60 times, and Gladiator probably 100. And he comes into the film playing Zeus, the Greek god. I shouldn't have to explain that, but he's just an amazing force, an amazing presence, and he's kind of like the overlord of all the gods, and he just brings a real sort of weight to that part of the film, and it's also fun. It's Russell Crowe being a bit cheeky. The music in Thor: Love and Thunder, it's very eclectic, and the influences that we were listening to when we were in pre-production and throughout the editing as well, there's a lot of kind of classic 80s rock, and that's why we went straight for Guns N' Roses, and we're using a bunch of their songs. And I've loved Guns N' Roses since I was very young, and it's just such an honor to be able to include their music in this film. And coupled with that, we have an amazing score by Michael Giacchino, who did who's done a lot of the Marvel films, and he's one of the best out there. And it just helps to create a wonderful tone that switches between the emotion and also the adventure and the overall over-the-topness of the story. For this film, Thor: Love and Thunder, we used the volume, which is basically it's a big circular room made of LED screens, and you project your environments on the screen. So imagine 1,000 televisions all in a big circle in the ceiling as well, and then you put an entire environment 360 degrees. And what's great is it lights the characters, and the actors themselves can see all of the stuff. They can see what instead of on a green screen or a blue screen, you're asking the actors to pretend they're looking at something, and then you put that in later on. And so often they'll be looking at a little dot on a green screen or a tennis ball on a stick, and then they ask, "What is this?" And you have to say, "I don't know. It might be a dragon, but it also might be a flying dolphin." There are two really great, wonderful characters in the film named Tooth Gnasher and Teeth Grinder, and they are gigantic goats, and they're space goats, and they are a very important part of the film because they drag the Viking ship that our heroes are on their journey on, and they drag it through space. And so these goats they actually come from the original Thor mythology, the Norse mythology, and they also come from the comic books. So they've been around a long time, the first time in a movie.